So I kind of find this disgusting how ignorant and illiterate people are in this country. So in the USA, we don't really understand what fascism is, it seems like, when the far right Democrats and Antifa and the communists and the socialists start calling people that want freedom and liberty fascist. I don't think they understand what that means. So all I said here was that I'm looking for a tattoo in Hilo. I can provide a safe and sterile place if you're still shut down because of the tyranny. And this guy says, Nick Desjardins says, stamp this dude with fascist so we can see him coming. And I said, I don't think that word means what you think it means. And then Nick says, you put yourself before others, comrade. And so I had to give him the definition. This is the actual definition, not just some made up thing. I said, fascism is a form of far-right, authoritarian, ultra-nationalism characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, as well as strong regimentation of society and the economy, which came to prominence in the early 20th century in Europe. And I said, in response, I am about freedom and liberty, the opposite of fascism. So like when I was 17, one of my first tattoos, I had a few before that, but one of my first professional tattoos was freedom across my back, meaning not government control, right? And I said, now look up the 25-point plan of the National Socialist in Germany, almost identical to American National Socialist. Look it up. Look up it was from 1921, the 1921 25-point plan of the National Socialist. They wanted total government control of healthcare, of industry, of everything, and high taxation and, guaranteed benefits, whether you've earned them or not. I mean, this was total government control. That's why they were called fascist. So he says, Nick says, you seem to have might is right attitude. Slice it how you want to slice it. So Jonathan, I put this video up. This video demonstrates, what far left and what far right means. Far right is ultra-authoritarianism, government control of all things. That's the farthest you can get to the right. And that would describe a monarchy or socialism or communism, as we've seen it in the past, where they control everything, where the government controls everything, right? That's far right. Far left is anarchism, no government control at all. So I'm neither far right nor far left. I'm center. I'm constitutional. As far as it comes for what I want, constitutional liberty. So that means everybody has inalienable rights. That's another word people don't understand. What does inalienable mean? It means rights not given by the government. Therefore, they cannot be taken away by the government. They mean they're protected rights. Even in the 9th Amendment, they are protected rights. They're not negotiable. So all I am is a constitutionalist who believes in inalienable rights. Jonathan Hoy, fascism is more aptly described as corporatism and leans wherever authoritarianism lies. Not simply ultra-right, that's just corporatist propaganda muddying the waters. And so Nick says, might is right, I'm healthy as fuck the rest. Oh, I'm healthy, fuck the rest. He forgot to use punctuation. So I said, if we all make up our own definitions, words mean nothing. I said, tell me how Bernie Sanders' platform differs from the 1921 25-point plan of the National Socialist in Germany. Truly, there are not many differences. Hitler hated Jews, and Bernie touts hate for the rich. You might want to know that Bernie's income is well over $400,000 a year, and he has 3 huge houses, very nice houses. He's in the top 1%. If you make over $400,000 a year, I think it's $420,000 a year, then you're in the top 1%. Bernie is in the top 1%, just to make that clear. I said Nazis hated Jews because they were good with money. If you replace the word Jew with rich, and democratic socialism in the USA is the same thing as Nazis. So the Nazis pointed out that the Jews had financial power. That was part of their 25-point plan. Well, Bernie, as a hypocrite like he is, continuously talks about how the wealthy have all this money. Well, he's one of those people. But he's always touting hatred for the rich. So if you just replace Jew in the 25-point plan of the Nazis from the 1921 25-point plan, and you replace that word with rich, then you've got the same exact thing. Total government control, blah, blah, blah. So I said Nazis were fascist because they wanted total government control. See, I don't want total government control. I just want constitutional liberty. And I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the rule of law, as long as it's constitutionally defined and doesn't vary from that. this total lockdown with the COVID thing and all that. That's fascism. That's exactly what describes fascism, right? So I'm just going to I'm going to pause this. I'm going to put the 25-point plan of the Nazis up so you can see how it's very similar to Bernie's plan, right? And even Bernie, like when he was talking about the borders, he was talking about securing the borders because people coming in from other countries without checks and balances take away from the jobs and wealth of people in the United States. He said that on Vox. So if you look up Bernie Sanders on open borders, you'll find a video of him giving an interview to Vox talking about how he doesn't agree with open borders. He agrees with, checks and balances and closed borders and border security. So he's ultra nationalist. He's ultra government authoritarianism. He wants the government to solve all of our problems. And he's just like a Nazi. And I'll show you why. All right, so here we go. The 25-point plan of the Nazis. They say the Nazis back in 1921, before all the destruction and death camps and all that, they led up to that with total government control, right? Which include gun confiscation and other things that disarm their people so they couldn't defend themselves. So the 25-point plan of the Nazi Party. Number 1, we demand the union of all Germans in Great Germany on the basis of the principle of self-determination of all people. 2, we demand that the German people have rights equal to those of other nations, and that the peace treaties of Versailles and Saint-Germain shall be abrogated. 3, we demand land and territory colonies for the maintenance of our people and the settlement of our surplus population. 4, only those who are fellow countrymen can become citizens. Only those who have German blood, regardless of creed, can become countrymen. Hence, no Jew can become countryman. Now, look at the Hawaiian Kingdom and a lot of their racism and a lot of their, genealogy stuff, ancestry stuff, and pure blood stuff, and, that's something very similar. So, number 5, those who are not citizens must live in Germany as foreigners and must be subject to the laws of aliens, or to the law of aliens. Number 6, the right to choose the government and determine the laws of the state shall belong only to citizens, we therefore demand that non-public office or whatever nature, whether in central government or province or municipality, shall not be held by anyone who is not a citizen. We wage war against the corrupt parliamentary administration whereby men are appointed to posts by favor of the party without regard to character and fitness. Number 7, we demand that the state shall, above all, undertake and ensure that every citizen shall have the possibility of living decently and earning a livelihood. If it should not be possible to feed the whole population, then aliens, equal non-citizens, shall be expelled from the Reich. Number 8, any further immigration of non-Germans must be prevented. We demand all non-Germans who have entered Germany since August 2nd, 1914, shall be compelled to leave the Reich immediately. This is also a very sovereignty-based thing for the Hawaiians. Just look up their, points and purposes of getting so-called haoles out. Melanie Trask, she was saying that she fights against all ownership of Hawaiian lands, right? Of foreigners buying Hawaiian lands. This is very high talking point of the sovereignty movement here in Hawaii. Let's see. All citizens must possess equal rights and duties. Number 10, the first duty of every citizen must be to work mentally or physically. No individual shall do any work that offends against the interest of the community to the benefit of all. Therefore, we demand, 11, that all unearned income and all income that does not arise from work be abolished. Since every war imposes on the people fearful sacrifices in blood and treasure, all personal profit arising from war must be regarded as treason to the people. We therefore demand the total confiscation of all war profits. Number 13, we demand nationalization of all trust. Number 14, we demand profit sharing in large industries. Number 15, we demand generous increase in old age pensions. Number 16, we demand the creation and maintenance of a sound middle class, the immediate communalization of large stores which will be rented cheaply to small tradespeople, and the strongest consideration must be given to ensure all small tradespeople shall deliver the supplies needed by the state, the provinces, and the municipalities. Number 17, we demand and agrarian reform in accordance with our national requirements, and the enactment of the law to appropriate the owners without compensation of any land needed for the common purpose, the abolition of ground rents, and the prohibition of all speculation in land. Number 18, we demand the ruthless war be waged against those who work to the injury of the common welfare. Traitors, usurers, profiteers, etc. are to be punished with death, regardless of race or creed. Sounds like Antifa to me. Number 19, we demand that Roman law, which serves materialistic ordering of the world, be replaced by German common law. Number 20, in order to make it possible for every capable, industrious German to obtain higher education, and thus the opportunity to reach into positions of leadership, the state must assume the responsibility of organizing thoroughly the entire cultural system of the people. The curricula of all educational establishments shall be adapted to practical life. The conception of the state idea, science of citizenship, must be taught in the schools from the very beginning. We demand that all specially talented children of poor parents, whatever their station or occupation, be educated at the expense of the state. Now that's very democratic socialist, if you ask me. That's very Bernieite. Number 21, the state has the duty to help raise the standard of national health by providing maternity welfare centers, by prohibiting juvenile labor, by increasing physical fitness through the introduction of compulsory games and gymnastics, and by the greatest possible encouragement of associations concerned with the physical education of the young. Number 22, we demand the abolition of the regular army and the creation of the National Folk Army. Now, Obama did this. He actually had the Obama Corps, or whatever they were, a bunch of youth that were getting into government service through military training. It was interesting. I'll try to find that and put it in the description. Number 23, we demand that there be a legal campaign against those who propagate deliberate political lies and decimate them through the press. In order to make it possible for the creation of a German press, we demand all editors and their assistants on newspapers published in the German language shall be German citizens. Non-German newspapers shall only be published with express permission of the state. They must not be published in the German language. All financial interest in or in any way affecting German newspapers shall be forbidden to non-Germans by law, and we demand that the punishment for transgressing this law be the immediate suppression of the newspaper and the expulsion of the non-Germans from the Reich. Newspapers transgressing against the common welfare shall be suppressed. Sounds like Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, the whole free speech and censorship thing that they're doing against Republicans and conservatives. I mean, there's litigation right now in court, and Trump is actually acting to level the playing field by enforcing censorship laws. So that's good. Anyway, we demand legal action against those tendencies in art and literature that have a disruptive influence upon life of our folk, and that any organization that offend against foregoing demands shall be dissolved. Number 24, we demand freedom for all religious faiths in the state insofar as they do not endanger its existence or offend the moral or ethical sense of the German race. So this is where, a lot of Democrats, a lot of socialists are opposing Christianity. And, like the whole shutdown that wouldn't allow churches to congregate during this shutdown of COVID-19. I mean, that violates the First Amendment, right? The First Amendment is an inalienable right. That's very important to know. So this one right here, especially, common good before individual good. This is very much Bernieite or democratic socialist or whatever. Number 25 of the National Socialist German Workers' Party demands or 25-point plan. In order to carry out this program, we demand the creation of a strong central authority in the state, the unconditional authority by the political central parliament of a whole state and its organizations, the formation of professional committees and of committees representing the several estates of the realm to ensure the laws promulgated by the central authority shall be carried out by the federal states. The leaders of the party shall undertake to promote the execution of the foregoing points at all cost, if necessary at the sacrifice of their own lives. So, I mean, this is total state control, right? This isn't freedom or liberty. This is fascism. Fascism differs from freedom and liberty. Now, if you look up what inalienable rights mean, right, let's just look up what the definition of inalienable means so that we can figure this out. It's very, very important. Inalienable, adjective, unable to be taken away from or given away by the possessor. Freedom of religion, the most inalienable of all human rights. Right? That's the definition. You just look it up in Webster or Encyclopedia Britannica, or here's Webster, Merriam-Webster. Definition of inalienable: incapable of being alienated, surrendered, or transferred, inalienable rights. So the first 10 amendments of the Constitution and the articles of the Constitution are inalienable rights. And it says that in the 9th Amendment. It says it all throughout our founders' documents. Inalienable rights are not given by government. They're given by our Creator, and they cannot be taken away by government. So the First Amendment, which is the right to peaceably assemble, that is an inalienable right. They can't suspend that. They can't take that away. That's not a right the government gave, and it's not a right they can take away. The Fifth Amendment, the right to freely travel, like with this travel ban in Hawaii, the 14-day quarantine and things like that. If you're in a 14-day quarantine, clearly you can't travel. So that is a violation of your Fifth Amendment right. That is fascism. Trying to take that away is fascism. So when people don't understand words, you kind of have to walk them through it. Let's just look up Bernie, Vox, and the open borders thing. So you can see how nationalistic he is, much like Hitler was. Open borders. I'm going to do open borders and then Vox. So this is during like the 2016 election where he was talking about how he doesn't believe in open borders. It's very important. Yeah, this is it right here. Bernie Sanders, the Vox conversation.
So tell me what it means to be a socialist.
A democratic socialist. What it means is that one takes a hard look at countries around the world who have success records in fighting and implementing programs for the middle class and working families. And when you do that, you automatically go to countries like Denmark, Finland, Norway, Sweden, other countries which have had...
So all of those countries say they're a market-based economy, they are not a socialist economy. What he's really referring to is Germany, the National Socialist. And they were democratic as well. Hitler was elected by popular vote, right?
Labour governments or social democratic governments. And what you find is that in virtually all of those countries, healthcare is a right of all people, and their systems are far more cost-effective than ours.
And again, that was the German solution, the Nazis.
College education is virtually free in all of those countries.
Again, another German National Socialist solution that I read from that 25-point plan.
People retire with better benefits. Wages that people receive are often higher.
Again, the retirement thing, the pensions, all that was identified in the 25-point plan of the Nazis. Government control of these things.
Distribution of wealth and income is much fairer. Their public education systems are generally stronger than ours. And by and large,
it's only become stronger than ours. For example, when the Department of Education was established in 1980. Before 1980, we had top scores. We were number one in math, science, reading, all sorts of subjects. We were number one. After the government took control and they created the Department of Education, we spent 5 times more and we got 2,600% less effectiveness. So right now, math and science, we're at 26 and 27. Out of world rankings for scores, we used to be number one.
Their governments tend to represent the needs of their middle class and working families rather...
Again, that was the democratic socialist plan of the Nazis. That was exactly what they said in their 25-point plan.
...than billionaires and campaign contributors. So when I talk about being a democratic socialist, those are the countries that I am looking at, and those are the ideas that I think we can learn a lot from.
Listen to the Prime Minister of Denmark rebuke Bernie Sanders when he said they are not a socialist nation. They're more capitalist than we are. They have more economic freedom than we have in the United States, actually.
So what is the underlying principle there then? What are the situations in which you look at a given area of the economy or a given service people need, and you say that's something we should turn over to the market, or that's something we should possibly federalize?
Good question. And the answer is, when you take something like healthcare, healthcare, to my mind, is a right of all people. Okay, that's what I believe. I think every man, woman, and child is entitled to healthcare, and that right exists.
So in that, we had better healthcare before Obamacare increased premiums and whatnot and mandated things. But when you look at it, like doctors that work for hospitals that, are employed as doctors take a Hippocratic oath, so they don't turn away patients. They're not allowed to. Like, you go to an emergency room in the United States, you don't get turned away. We were in Ireland and Netherlands, and in Ireland and England, like during the time we were there, they had 12 to 18 hour waits in England during the 2017 time in which we were there. They had closed down 19 NSH hospitals, now National Health, what is it? NHS hospitals. The National Healthcare of England had shut down 19 hospitals, and they were starting to have doctors see patients in libraries while we were there. You can look it up. 19 NHS hospitals shut down, and you'll find what I'm talking about. They're, socialists. They guarantee healthcare to all, so on and so forth. It's not working out for them. They're losing money. They're bleeding money to like travel tourism and stuff from other EU countries. Let's go on. I want to get to this point where he's talking about closing the borders. Let me see if I can find it.
In virtually every other major industrialized country on earth, we are the odd guys out there. Despite the modest gains of the Affordable Care Act, we have 35 million people who still have no health.
As many people lost health care under the Affordable Care Act because of the mandates and the fines as gained it. So people that weren't able to pay for health care gained health care, about 4 million of them. People that were paying for health care before that, out of their income, they were paying for their own health care. Well, because premiums doubled, almost 5 million people lost health care. So it wasn't a gain, it was a loss. Let's see if I can get to this open borders thing. Might have to pause this for a sec.
In that answer, but also in what you said about being a democratic socialist, is a more international view. But I think if you take global poverty that seriously, it leads you to conclusions that in the U.S. are considered out of political bounds. Things like sharply raising the level of immigration we permit, even up to a level of open borders. About sharply increasing
open borders.
Foreign aid.
Open borders. That's a Koch brothers proposal. The idea is essentially there is no United States.
But it would make a lot of global poor richer, wouldn't it?
All right, so let me go back to that, because he's saying that that's a right-wing proposal, that's a Koch brothers proposal, that's a Republican proposal. I'm going to explain how he's wrong, but let's go back to that.
Open borders.
Borders.
That's a Koch brothers proposal. The idea, of course, that's a right-wing proposal which says essentially there is no United States.
But it would make a lot of global poor richer, wouldn't it?
And it'd make everybody in America poor. Then you're doing away with the concept of a nation state. And I don't think there's any country in the world which believes in a nation state, or in a country called the United States or UK or Denmark or any other country. You have an obligation, in my view, to do everything we can to help poor people. What right-wing people in this country would love is an open border policy. Bring in all kinds of people who work for $2 or $3 an hour. That would be great for them. I don't believe in that. I think we have...
Okay, so that's what the National Socialists, the Nazis, were saying, is that limiting immigration, sharply limiting immigration, not letting foreigners take part in our country, not having open borders. The Nazis were on the same level of immigration policies as Bernie Sanders. Again, another fascist talking point. This is Bernie, this is democratic socialism in America, and it mimics almost identically the National Socialism in Germany in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. And so they didn't start off gassing people and killing people, right? They were just proposing things like Bernie's proposing. And then it wasn't until the late 1930s that they started gassing people and starting wars and bombing people. So it didn't start off right away. So just because Bernie's saying these things and he's not actually bombing anybody right now, that doesn't mean that that's not what's in the horizon, because that's what this leads to. Socialism, communism, and fascism, all basically the same thing, lead to that almost every circumstance. In every circumstance I can look at in history, communism, socialism, fascism always leads to the war and death and destruction of its people. So I don't agree with socialism. And the United States is way more socialist now than we were in 1913. When Woodrow Wilson created the IRS Act and the Tax Act and the Federal Reserve Act, he did it because he wanted social infrastructure, implementation of socialist purposes, retirement funds, welfare, government control of health care, and things like that. That's what Woodrow Wilson was for, and he was a democratic socialist. He was the godfather of socialism in the United States. And that's when we became socialists, is in 1913, when we handed over our treasury to the Federal Reserve and we started taxing the labor of people. Before 1913, we had barely any national debt. You know, it was maybe in the millions. Now it's in the trillions, right? So it's drastically more than it was in before 1913. We are now tax slaves. You know, we weren't taxed on our labor before 1913. Now we are. We give up a certain amount of our proceeds from working from our own labor to the government by force. We don't even consent. If we don't pay, we go to prison. That's fascism. That's fascism. And we were more prosperous and we took more people out of poverty in this country before we had the income tax than any other country in history. So it's a negative. It's not a positive thing. He's selling free stuff for votes. That's what Bernie's always done. I'll give you free stuff if you'll vote for me. You know, that's his thing, you know, offering bribes to people to vote for him. That's the socialist plan, and I disagree with it. So no, I am not a fascist. That would not describe me. That's an improper use of the word. I believe in freedom and liberty and constitutional protections of our rights, inalienable rights, something we absolutely need to learn. And I posted this on my Disruptarian Radio. You can look me up at Clovis Star as well on YouTube. I posted this over and over, critiquing the National Socialist and the Democratic Socialist and showing how they are almost the same thing. You just replace the word rich with the word Jew, and then what you've got with democratic socialism in the United States is the National Socialist plan of the Nazis in 1921. Same exact thing. It's terrible.